One of the most misleading experiences of the mind is relief. Something eases, pressure drops, tension softens, the system relaxes. And almost immediately, a conclusion appears. It's over. It's resolved. I'm fine now. That was the answer. But relief does not necessarily mean anything has been resolved. Relief is a change in intensity. Resolution is a change in structure. Those are not the same thing. This confusion is common because relief feels convincing. When tension falls, the mind assumes the problem itself has changed, but often only your distance from it has changed. You stopped thinking about it. You escaped the feeling. You found an explanation. You made a decision. You distracted yourself. You regained a sense of control. And with that movement, pressure decreased. The system felt better. But feeling better is not the same as something being complete. This is why the same issue returns, again and again. Not because nothing helped, but because relief was mistaken for resolution. The discomfort faded, so the mind moved on. The tension dropped, so the process was considered finished. But what ended was not the pattern, only the pressure of contact. This is what makes relief so persuasive. It feels like evidence. If the body softens, the mind assumes this worked. And sometimes that is true. But very often what worked was only distance. Distance from uncertainty. Distance from sensation. Distance from conflict. Distance from unfinished experience. Distance reduces pressure quickly. That is why it feels effective. But effectiveness in the short term can be deeply misleading. The mind loves anything that lowers intensity fast, because intensity feels urgent. So when relief appears, the system wants to trust it. It wants to believe that the thing is done, that nothing more is needed, that no deeper contact is required. This is where the mistake forms. The mind begins to value the absence of discomfort more than the presence of resolution. And once that happens, relief becomes the goal, not truth, not completion, not understanding, only reduction, only the lowering of what feels too much. This is why many people become experts at relieving themselves without ever resolving what keeps returning. They know how to calm, how to distract, how to explain, how to regain control, how to move on. But moving on is not always completion. Sometimes it is interruption with softer edges. And because the interruption feels good, it is rarely questioned. That is the danger of relief. Not that it feels good, that it feels final.
What creates this confusion is that relief changes the body immediately. The muscles loosen, breathing shifts, attention widens, the sense of urgency drops. And because the body feels different, the mind assumes the situation itself is different. But the situation may be unchanged. Only the level of activation has changed. This is a crucial distinction. A system can calm down without learning anything. A mind can feel clearer without becoming more accurate. A feeling can pass without the process completing. This happens all the time. You decide something quickly and the uncertainty drops, so the decision feels correct. You explain your behavior and the inner tension softens, so the explanation feels true. You pull away from a difficult situation and the pressure decreases, so the distance feels wise. But the reduction in discomfort does not prove that the underlying pattern has changed. It only proves that intensity was lowered. This is why relief can become addictive, not in a dramatic sense, in a structural one. The mind begins to orient itself around whatever reduces pressure fastest, not because it is best, because it is immediate. And what is immediate has enormous persuasive force when the system is overwhelmed. This is why short-term relief often outranks long-term resolution. Resolution is slower, less obvious, less emotionally persuasive. It may even feel worse before it feels better. Because real resolution often requires staying in contact with what relief would rather avoid: the discomfort, the uncertainty, the unfinished sensation, the unresolved contradiction. Relief says, enough, leave it. Resolution says, stay, something is still happening. That difference matters, because if you always follow relief, you may repeatedly leave just before something could complete, just before the system could learn something new, just before the pattern could reveal itself more fully. And then, because the issue returns, the mind assumes it needs more relief, a better explanation, a stronger distraction, a cleaner decision, a firmer sense of control. But more relief does not create resolution. It only creates a better managed return. That is why certain problems seem to come back with different faces, but the same emotional shape. The relief was real. The completion was not. And until that difference is seen, the mind will continue mistaking the lowering of pressure for the end of the process.
What makes resolution different is not that it feels better immediately. Often it doesn't. That is why the mind prefers relief. Relief is quick. Resolution is slower. Relief reduces pressure. Resolution changes the pattern that keeps creating the pressure. This is a much deeper process, because what returns is not always the same event. It is often the same structure, the same emotional sequence, the same interpretation, the same reflex to escape, explain, distance, or regain control. And as long as that structure remains untouched, the issue will keep returning under different forms. This is why some experiences seem to repeat even when the context changes. Different people, different settings, different words, but the same emotional architecture, the same collapse, the same urgency, the same temporary relief, then the same return. When this happens, the mind usually tries to improve the relief strategy. A better explanation, a stronger boundary, a cleaner decision, a faster way to calm down. But none of these necessarily reach the structure itself. They may manage the surface. They may reduce the noise. They may even create the impression that something important has shifted. But if the same pattern can still rebuild itself under pressure, then the process is not complete. That is the real test. Not whether you feel better today, whether the same structure still takes hold tomorrow. This is why resolution often feels less dramatic than people expect. There is no big conclusion, no triumphant certainty, no immediate sense that everything is finished forever. There is simply less repetition, less automatic return, less need to escape, less pressure to explain, less urgency to fix. The system changes not by producing a more satisfying feeling, but by no longer rebuilding the same shape so easily. That is what the mind usually fails to notice. It keeps asking, do I feel better? Instead of asking, does the same pattern still reorganize me in the same way? That question is quieter, more precise, and much less seductive. But it reveals more. Because real resolution is not proven by emotional relief. It is revealed through changed recurrence. The thing does not grip in the same way. The cycle does not close as quickly. The old structure does not take over with the same authority. That is when something real has begun to shift. Not because comfort arrived, because repetition weakened. This is why relief should be treated carefully, welcomed perhaps, used when needed, but never mistaken for the final answer. Relief may be part of the process, but it is not the proof that the process is complete. That distinction protects perception. It keeps the mind from building false certainty out of temporary easing. And once that certainty weakens, something more honest becomes possible. You stop chasing whatever lowers pressure fastest, and you begin to notice what actually changes the structure underneath. That is a very different way of looking at experience. Less comforting at first, more accurate over time. This is inner cognition.